Welcome back to the Doc B podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Cook, Director of Program Evaluation in Clovis Unified. Today's guest is someone who's become a steady, trusted presence across our campuses, supporting students, building relationships, and helping keep our schools safe with a calm, people-first approach. He served in law enforcement for years, and here in Clovis Unified, he's helped shape the way we think about school safety, not just as security, but as connection, prevention, and care. I'm excited to welcome to the show Lieutenant Hector Becerra. Lieutenant Becerra, thanks for joining me today on the Doc B podcast. Why don't you reintroduce yourself and share what led you into law enforcement and eventually CUSD?
My name's Hector Becerra. I am a lieutenant here at the Clovis Unified Police Department. When I was, thinking third, fourth grade, I went to Inglewood Elementary, and I'll never forget, our teacher said, we're gonna have a police officer come in and do a demonstration with their dog. I was like, oh, wow. I sat right in front in the corner, and I remember this police officer coming in. He was towering over me. I thought he was like 7 foot. And he looked like Batman to me. He had all the tools and his dog with him, and they did a demonstration. I just remember being at awe and looking at him thinking, wow, man, that is cool. I kind of what initially planted the seed for me to want to be a cop. I came to the Central Valley in my mid-teens, graduated from Daniel High School. I'll never forget, I was about 21, 22, and I was still kind of thinking about, should I be a police officer, should I not? My dad saw a police car and he was like, hey, that's too bad you never became a police officer, not something you wanted to do. The light bulb went off. I said, you know what? I should do it. Just about time, I felt like everything kind of fell into place. That day, the Fresno PD had a big article that Fresno PD had gotten a huge grant where they were hiring tons of people. I think they wanted to do 30, 40 people a year for the next 3 or 4 years. I took the cadet. Unfortunately, I was like number 40 out of 300. They did tell me that I would be able to go to the police academy, but I'd be about a year away. I wanted to be a cop, so I paid my way through the police academy. I was fortunate enough to get hired. I graduated in uniform. That began my career at Fresno PD. I did various assignments from patrol, bike unit, motors, major narcotics, felony assault, TAC team with the U.S. Marshals. After 20 years at Fresno PD, I retired. About 6 months, it hit me like, man, I'm not a police officer anymore. Well, I knew that a lot of officers that had retired had come to Clovis Unified School District. And so I asked if they had any openings. At the time they didn't, but they were thinking they were gonna have either 1 or 2 retiring. So I put in my application. I was lucky enough to get an interview. Unfortunately, the first go around, I was not picked. And I was pretty bummed out. I was thinking maybe it's not in the cards for me, but I was encouraged to apply again. And the second go around, I was fortunate enough to get hired. So there began my career here at Clovis Unified.
How has your role evolved inside of CUSD Police?
When I started out, I was the rover, the officer assigned to all the elementary schools. We often go work at a different site if somebody calls in sick or if they're on vacation. Fortunately, we're fully staffed, so I was able to do the rover position for about 2 years, then COVID hit. So that kind of put a pause on everything. When COVID got lifted, we had lost a couple officers. I was asked to go to Buchanan. I have a daughter on the elementary side. It made it easy for me to go to a lot of the school functions because I was already in elementary school, and that's one of the chief's philosophies, family first. He kind of expects us to go to the award ceremony or sporting event. I was kind of hesitant. I really didn't want to go. I didn't want to leave the rover position. I was getting pulled from different people that kept asking me. People that I didn't even know knew my name, to be honest, because I was so new in the district. So I went to Buchanan, and that was probably one of the better decisions I ever made here with the CUSD Police Department because they got me to interact more with the high school and the junior high. I really liked it. I mean, I liked it a lot. The only reason I did leave is because I was fortunate enough to get promoted to a sergeant. It's a supervisory role. Their function is predominantly when we hire somebody, we have what's called an FTO program, field training officer, and they train the incoming officers. I was a sergeant for approximately 3 years. I just recently got promoted earlier this year as a lieutenant. We have 2 sergeants, 3 corporals, and the rest of the officers. That's the hierarchy as far as the police department goes.
What changed when you moved from a school site to a supervisory role?
Leaving a school site, you kind of lose touch with the kids. It sucks in a way sometimes because I'll work at like a football game or a dance and all the kids don't know me anymore. My partners that usually worked at school, they're getting the fist bumps and, hey, how you doing, Officer so-and-so? And I'm kind of just on the outskirts like, the lone man out. And that is one of the downfalls of becoming a supervisor. You come inside and kind of lose touch with the students. I still try to interact with students, but it's not the same thing where you have an officer that's day in and day out at a school site interacting with the students, which is something that our chief and me as well, it's something that's expected from our officers. We expect our officers to be out there during the breaks, during lunch, before school, after school, interacting with the kids.
It sounds like you really do miss those relationships with the kids. So maybe you can share with us, how do relationships with students prevent problems before they even start?
Not just to build that relationship, but it really does help you out. I often tell the new hires that come in, it will really save you a lot of work building this relationship with these kids. And sometimes I get the weird look, what do you mean? What I mean by that is I built such a good relationship with a lot of the kids at Buchanan. My last year that I was there, I had 0 fights. I attribute that to the fact that I was able to build a lot of relationships. It would never fail. I'd be out and around during lunch break, and a kid would come up to me and say, hey, Officer Becerra, just to let you know, they're talking about fighting after school, or after lunch, they're gonna be over there by the tennis courts. So I'd get that information, show up, and see the group of kids coming, and they'd look at me like, man, why is he here? And then they take off, and they would say, hey, after school, they're gonna be fighting by the baseball field. I can't tell you how many times I'd be at a football game, and they'd tell me in the restroom at halftime, there's gonna be some kids fighting. I'd show up, and sure enough, you see the group of kids dumbfounded when they see me. That's something that we really harp on with the officers that come in. It really does make a difference in the kids' lives to interact with them and build that relationship, because it's lifelong.
So what kind of officer is a great fit for CUSD Police, and why do they come here?
Usually the officers that come here, it's because they've been there and done that. A newer officer that would come here would probably be bored, to be honest, because we're not running and gunning. Like, we're not trying to give citations. We're not trying to give everybody parking tickets. We're more there as a line of defense. I tell everybody that if something was to go down, I can guarantee you that myself and all the officers are gonna address any kind of threat. We'll be front and center 100%. But as far as the other side, we're not stat driven. I'm not telling my officers, hey, so-and-so gave 6 tickets. Why did you only write 2? That's not what we want. We want the relationships. We want officers to be at the campus. I don't want an officer to make a traffic stop and they won't have a license. Now you got to tow the car. And so now that takes that officer away from that campus. And when an officer is away, that's usually when things can happen. And so for us, our priority is the safety of our school, our students, and our officers.
So you come to Clovis Unified after working a long career with Fresno PD, and I'm curious, what was your first impression of Clovis Unified, our culture, and the type of officer that best fits here?
It's better for us to get seasoned officers, because a lot of the officers that we get are more just there for the kids, and they're not like running and gunning. And so when I first got here, I went around to the different sites, introduced myself, and let them know that I was going to be the officer. If a call was to come out, more likely it was going to be myself. And I noticed that everybody was super happy, smiling, like they actually enjoyed coming to work. And that was the case on every site that I went to. So much so that I was telling some of my friends and my wife, man, everybody seems like they're super happy here. I felt like it was a big show, right? Are they doing this just to make me happy that I got hired? As I continued my career as a rover, it stayed like that. Everybody was super happy. And I'm like, man, this is weird to me. I say that because a lot of the officers that we're getting from different agencies, they're either burnt out or they're not feeling the love that they once did. To be honest, it's very hard to be a police officer during these times, but it's a lot different when you come here. You build that relationship and value with the students, which makes it a lot easier, because now you get students that will open up to you, they'll talk to you, and there, in a sense, is where you get, I call them my little satellites. That's when they come and tell things that are happening. We have an open door policy with our officers if they want to come in and talk to us. That's also the philosophy we have with our kids. Our kids could always come and talk to us, whether they're having a good or a bad day. It doesn't necessarily have to be police related.
What type of policing model would you say CUSD employs, and what does that look like here as compared to other police departments?
Community-based policing, where you build a relationship with the community. One of the assignments that I mentioned, I was a neighborhood police officer, and in Fresno, what they did is we address whatever it may be, whether it's homelessness, a house that's possibly dealing narcotics, whatever the case may be, we would address that, try to find a resolution. It's kind of the same here at the police department. We want to build that relationship with the students and the staff as well. I could tell you that when I was at Buchanan, I would always have kids come in and talk to me, whether they're having a good or bad day. Letting them open up to you makes a world of difference in their eyes. Sometimes they take it and talk to their friends and parents. That's what we want to do, build a really strong foundation with our kids, because at the end, that's really why we're here, right? For our kids.
What makes retired police officers want to come work for Clovis?
I honestly feel that they're valued. I can't tell you, and I'm not going to name different police departments because I feel like this is a nationwide trend. I felt bad sometimes when kids would come up to me and say, "Hey, Officer Becerra, what do I got to do to be a police officer?" So I talk to them, ask them the why, right? Why do you want to be a police officer? And they tell me what they want to tell me, and then I would say, okay, well, this is what you got to do. However, you got to be ready to expect different things, because being a police officer right now is super hard. You feel like you're not valued. One of the problems that you have when you work at an agency, it's different in the sense that you could go to a call, arrest that person, and you might not see that person for the rest of your career. Here, you could get a kid that gets suspended. That kid come back in 5 or 6 days. It's valuable when the kids come back after being suspended. You talk to them, you invest in them, and you mentor them. I know I've done it. I know a lot of our officers do it. So you have ownership in a sense that when you're here, you know that a lot of the kids that have issues are going to be right back. Even if they go to a continuation school, they might be back the following year. I think the fact that you invest in these kids and build a relationship and a good core beliefs with these kids, it'll come back tenfold.
So I'm kind of curious, what do your officers say to you after you've hired them and they've been on the job for a short time?
When I first came here to Clovis Unified, I wanted to be a police officer again. That 6 or 7 months that I wasn't a police officer, it felt weird. When I came to Clovis Unified, I was like, all right, I got a job. I didn't really know what to expect as far as the philosophy or the way that they policed. When I came here, it's just totally different. I can't tell you how many times every officer that we've hired here says the same thing. They come from different agencies where they felt that they weren't valued. They felt unappreciated. They come here and it's a complete 180. And I wholeheartedly mean that. You can ask every officer. That's one of the spiels I give them. I tell them that story about how everybody just seems to be happy now. There's always going to be somebody that has a bad day, but for the most part, everybody's super happy. And sure enough, 3, 4 months later, they come back and say, "Hey, you know what, LT, you're right. Everybody seems to be happy and they enjoy coming to work." It's really important that you like your job. It's important that you like working with the people you work with, because we're hoping to get years of service from our officers. As of right now, everybody that's come here really does appreciate it and really does like coming to work.
As a parent and an officer, what does a safe and welcoming campus look like?
Well, number one is obviously safety, right? I could tell you that is the number one priority for us. I hope that we never have an issue that other schools around the nation are having, whether it's a shooting or somebody coming on campus and doing something they shouldn't have. I believe, besides Kearney, we're the only school district around this area that has their own police department. Parents love the fact that they have officers at the different sites. I'll use a school like Clovis Elementary. They don't necessarily have an officer stationed there, but there's an officer right down the street at Clovis High. We also have another officer at Clark. A lot of our double campuses like Clovis East and Rayburn, Garfield, Alta, and Buchanan have 2 officers there. Sometimes it could be as simple as visibility. Having a police officer's vehicle parked in front of the school would deter somebody from doing something to that school. The students know that we have officers on site. It makes a really big difference. And every year we get anonymous feedback from different students that'll say, "Hey, so-and-so, I heard, may have this or may have that." It's easier for us to address it then and there than reacting to something after the fact.
Describe for us what a great day is for a CUSD police officer.
A great day is our officers being on that campus, visible, interacting with the kids in the morning, during lunch, during breaks, and after school. If nothing happens, that's a perfect day for us. There has been instances where there's a police car, and why is a police car here? And on the flip side, I could tell you that when a police car is not there, well, I say, "Hey, where's our officer? Why isn't our officer here at this campus?" I believe the education has gone out to our parents that our schools have officers assigned to them. And I can tell you that every time we're at a different campus, it's all positive feedback. Everybody is happy we're there. They're glad that officers are interacting with our kids. Visibility is a big deterrent for something not to happen. And so I think the parents like the fact that our cars parked there visible and we're out and about. It gives them a sense of security. I know it does myself with my kid that goes to the district. Knowing that there's officers assigned, I think they enjoy the fact that we have officers there.
It feels like every time you turn on the TV, there's something happening on someone's campus across this nation. So I'm thinking that our audience would like to know, how do you prepare for and respond to serious threats, or maybe not so serious threats, and how do partnerships help?
I can tell you this, when we do have these swatting calls where they're saying that they're going to go to a school, we have every agency in and around the district that comes. I may have a student that goes to the school, but so does Fresno PD, so does the Clovis PD, so does the sheriffs. It's really a sight to see that everybody comes together, because the safety of our kids is paramount. That's the number one reason why we're here. Our number one philosophy is the safety of our kids and our staff. Yeah, there is different types of threats that we can encounter. I could tell you that whenever we have calls where a threat is being made, we have officers on task force, and they have federal agents that they talk to. They collaborate and work with them. It's not always the case, but a lot of times they'll find out who's doing those swatting calls, and they'll do a follow-up and arrest. Earlier this year, they arrested, I want to say like Indiana or Wisconsin. And so it's not just a swatting call and that's the end of it. There's stuff being done on the back end so that it doesn't happen again. We got to get the word out. It's not always just ends there. There's some follow-up and detective work that's being done on the back end. Something Chief Mayberry is doing is aligning with Fresno PD and Clovis PD. If something wants to happen, those are the two agencies that we're going to be side by side addressing any kind of threat. We are having training sessions with both of them. Matter of fact, we're having a big one here in the summertime. Well, I could tell you that having a child in this district, I feel 100% safe knowing that if my child is at a site, the officers there are more than capable of handling any issues, which makes me feel very good as far as where my kid's at. But I could tell you that the way we have trained, the collaboration that we have with our sister agencies, I feel 100% confident somebody else addressing a threat, even if I'm not there. And I wholeheartedly mean that. I could tell you that this particular threat we had, a lot of the parents were saying, I'm not sending my kid to school the next day. That should show you how confident I am that we will address, or if there was a legitimate threat, I wouldn't keep my kid, but that's not the case. But I could tell you that I've never kept my kid home because I felt that there was a threat at a school or an incoming threat. That's not the case. I like the direction that we're going. I think Dr. Fulmer is doing an excellent job. Our chief has really elevated our police department to where it is right now. We're two different entities, but we work very well with our staff on the ed code side. The school district's already one of the top districts in the nation, but we want our police department to parallel that. The one thing I want to harp on is our officers are there for our kids and our staff. They're there to mentor, to help, to educate. We're not there for necessarily traditional policing like giving tickets or whatever. I actually prefer that we don't give any tickets if everybody's doing the right thing.
What do you wish parents understood about the role of CUSD police?
Our primary factor of being at a school is safety. I could tell you that 9 out of 10 parents enjoy the fact that we're there. There's always going to be somebody that they've had a negative interaction with a police officer, and they don't have to necessarily like us, but I could tell you regardless whether they like us or not, we're still going to be there and we're still going to provide safety, not only for their kid, but for all the kids. I want them to know, not necessarily just the students, but even the parents, I want them to know that their child or student is safe when they come to a Clovis Unified School District, and we treat them as our own. One thing I can't stand, that's when a parent would come up and say, you see that officer? You tell him that he better listen or you're going to take him to jail. I'm like, I'm not telling that kid I'm taking him to jail. That's already planting a seed that police officers are bad, and we're not bad. We're just like anybody else. We're just regular people, and we just happen to wear a uniform. I would like parents to know when they're yelling and getting mad because their student did this and they're facing consequences because of the decision they made. It's not because I made he or she do this. I'm there after the fact because whether kid got in a fight or kid sucker punched somebody, that has to be addressed. We have to document it. We're not doing it to get your child in trouble. don't get mad at me or one of my officers because they're doing their job. We're there because we got called. We're not there to pick on your kid after the fact. Communication goes a long way. And if they could just communicate, nobody has to be yelling, and you're planting that seed with that child, especially if they're young, and they're going to associate their parents fighting with a cop, plants that seed that officers are there to only take them to jail or be mean. So that'd be the number one thing. We just want to be treated with respect, just the way you want to be treated. I think too, just because I wear this badge, I'm not saying you have to respect me. I respect everybody. Everybody deserves respect. If you show respect, you get respect, right? Respect goes a long way. We're all here for the same thing. We want your child to succeed, graduate, and do good things. We're not there to halt that or do anything other than that.
How do you build trust with students and also hire officers who can do the same?
I think talking to them and treating them with respect, the way you want to be treated, goes a long way. Every kid is different. Some kids are a lot more open. There's some kids that are a little bit more sheltered and not as open to interact with you. Regardless of which one it is, if you have to invest a little bit more time in, then so be it. But I can guarantee you that not only myself, but the officers we have here have a really good rapport with their kids. If you treat every kid with respect, regardless of why he or she is in trouble, I think it'll come back tenfold. I think the officers, like I said, the average experience of our officers is like 22 years. We like to hire officers that we know have good communication skills. We want to hire officers that have a good reputation, that are good with kids. Maybe they were SRO at a different school. For us, hiring the correct officer makes a world of difference. I am involved in the hiring process. Obviously, I don't make the final decision. Our chief makes the final decision. However, I do bring the names forward, not only ones that I believe, but the panel. So what we do when we're doing the hiring process, we'll have myself, a couple of sergeants, maybe a couple of corporals, and then we'll have somebody from an area. So for example, if we're hiring somebody from the Buchanan area, we'd like to have an admin from the Buchanan area because the officer that is coming in might work for that person. We want our admin to have some input. When it's all said and done, we'll get the paperwork, the rankings, and from there we'll decide who we go with or who I present to the chief. A lot of our officers we've hired have experience and somebody knows that officer. A lot of the times these officers that are coming in are already known. If they're not known to me, they're maybe to the other officers, maybe the sergeant. Oftentimes we already know what he or she brings to the table. That's not always the case, but for the most part we do. Those are the ones we bring to chief. We've been really fortunate in hiring some quality officers. I don't see that changing. Yeah, to us the most important thing is the hiring. We're not going to hire somebody that's not going to pass our background. We don't want an officer that's been involved in 5 or 6 IAs. That's not what we want. We want officers that have good communication skills because we're going to need them to mentor our kids. They're going to be our face at that school and they're going to be representing us. We want the right person for the job.
What advice do you give students who want to become police officers?
When I have kids come in asking, hey, what do I got to do to be a police officer? I always tell them, number one, get your education. Once you're a police officer, it's really hard to finish. Once you start working, you're working midnights and they're switching up your schedule. I was fortunate enough to be in a lot of different tactical teams and detectives. So I was always fluctuating with the hours and days off. It makes it hard to go back to school. That's the one thing I always tell kids when they come in. I say, always get your education because sometimes being a police officer is not for everybody. I've seen it more than once at Fresno, come in for 3 or 4 months and man, this ain't for me. And at least they have their education to fall back on. If they don't do it, they don't have an education. You know how important it is to have an education, particularly now. The last swearing-ins I've gone to at Fresno PD, they mention their names and give a little bio on them. I could say it seems like 8 out of 10 of them have a bachelor's. So I tell our kids this, if you're trying to compete against somebody else to get a job, because everything's competition, I tell them, who would you get? If you have 2 people that are exactly the same, and the only difference is one has a degree and one doesn't, you're going to pick the one with the degree. Not that it makes that person that much better, but it's just something more that he or she has that you don't. I always stress on, get your education first, get your bachelor's, get a little life experience because I was 22, right, when I got hired. One of the first calls I went to was an out-of-control 17-year-old. I have these parents telling me, can you tell him to listen? I'm thinking, man, I'm only 4 or 5 years older than this guy, and I wish there was body cameras back then so I could see how foolish I sounded.
Who taught you the Clovis Unified Way, and what does students at the center mean to you?
Oh, well, it was probably Sus Cerrone. He was an officer that I knew way back in Fresno. He's the reason that I came to Clovis Unified. He was one of my friends I leaned on and talked to in regards to, hey, how is it working over there? When he was telling me what I've already shared, I really thought he was just blowing smoke, not really telling me the facts. I was thinking he just wants me to come over there so he could have his boy over there, right? But yeah, it was Sus Cerrone. Unfortunately, he was one of our officers that passed away during COVID, but he is the reason why I came over here, and he's pretty much taught me the Clovis Unified Way. Everything that he said, I didn't believe because unfortunately, as police officers, we get lied to. I've been lied to for the last 20 years at Fresno PD. I'm thinking, he's just telling me these things because he wants me to come over. Not that he needed to tell me because I wanted to come over, but the things that he was telling me, I didn't believe. Everybody's super happy. You're going to feel valued. You'll like working here. It's different than the work that you do at Fresno PD. It's a lot more mentoring, and from there you can get into coaching. A lot of different avenues you can do. And so him telling me these things, I was kind of already sold. It wasn't until I came here and I saw for myself. I told him, yeah, you're right. It's just crazy to me to think how everybody could be so happy and wanting to come to work and loving their job. I just didn't believe them. From our point of view, the kids are our future, right? A lot of these kids, they're a lot younger than me, so I'll probably never work with them side by side if one of them wants to be a police officer. But investing in them, this student that I'm talking to, maybe one day could be a superintendent or be the chief of police at Clovis or Fresno. I believe that Clovis has a reputation. Everybody always wants to come to Clovis schools. Even when I was in Fresno, everybody was all, hey, you got to go to Clovis. You got to go to Clovis. We were going to buy a house in Fresno, and it was last minute that we decided to come to Clovis, and it was probably the best decision we ever made. They always call it the Clovis way of life. Besides the school district, just the community itself, we have the backing of our community when it comes to police officers, investing in our kids, because you never know. That kid one day can become a doctor. That doctor can one day save your life. Treat everybody well and with respect. I treat everybody the way I like to be treated myself, regardless of their age, regardless if it's an interaction that I'm having because they're in trouble. I always try to make even that interaction a positive interaction. I let them know that if they're in trouble for whatever reason, it's not because I got them in trouble, it's a decision they made, but just because they made that decision doesn't mean it's the end of the world or I'm gonna feel different about them. What's different from a school philosophy of policing versus city policing is you may never see that person again. That's not the case here in Clovis. That student could be sitting in your office within a week, and it could be a different reason as to why he or she is there. I believe investing in our kids is the number one thing we can do here at Clovis.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed hearing from someone who makes CUSD a special place for students and families. This podcast is dedicated to every classified and certificated employee who shows up each day to enrich students' lives and help them be their best in mind, body, and spirit. We'll see you next time on the Doc B Podcast. As Doc always said,
don't ever forget our motto, sickle.